3 years ago, I was completely stoked to find out that my little one was going to be a boy. And of course, I was going to be excited either way, but I was so happy to know that piece of my future. And I was very happy for a few seconds. Then the nurse suggested that we had further testing done to see if he had any predisposition to a genetic disease. A thought I had not considered until then, and a thought that now sent me on a spiral of a whole new array of things to be afraid of. Having a little piece of information can do that, and as a species, we've heard a lot of things about where we are going that can inspire fear. Genetically, we are becoming a physically weaker species. We are genetically more susceptible to disease. And if you just hear this, it can make you worry. However, when we know the full story, it's not something to be afraid of. It's something to be proud of and to have hope in, because we've worked hard to get where we are, and as hard as we've worked, we have an incredible future to look forward to. And it is so obvious, the things that we're doing right now that affect us right now, that the statistics are already out for 2045 years from now. We already know what we're going to be like, how long we're going to live, and a good chunk of what our DNA is going to look like, and it's not something to be afraid of. The easiest way to to see how we have directly affected our future is with the advances in medicine. And yes, we're all getting a chance to get the sneezes taken care of a little bit faster and getting on the diets appropriate for our individual bodies. But the big things are the ones that alter whether or not a person survives to adulthood. And there are a number of genetic diseases, like diabetes, for an example, that claim a lot of lives before the individual reaches adulthood. Now, once you reach adulthood, that's when you get your chance to pass on your DNA to the next generation. And if you have survived, you pass those on. So a person that survives to adulthood with a genetic disease that would have been terminal, now their children have it, and their children have it, and exponentially down the line, that trait multiplies and multiplies until a huge, bigger number of individuals have access to that particular unfavorable gene. However, even though the American Diabetes Association put out a statistics report in 2014 saying that 1.4 million Americans are diagnosed with diabetes every year, the survival rate's gone up too. I have a handy slide here. Now, due to the advances in medical breakthroughs, AIDS deaths are down 24% in just a few years. It's an incredible number. Tuberculosis, maternal deaths, infant deaths, even measles deaths are significantly down. And the results of that means that in 1950, we used to have a life expectancy of 47. In 2011, that number has gone up to 70. That's an incredible increase. Further explaining that particular slide, the medicine causes a dramatic drop in loss of life. So more people are living longer. The genes that are no longer life-threatening are now passed on to the next generation, but our life expectancy has dramatically increased because of it. The UN reports in 2009 that they've done the math from 1947 to 2045, and our life expectancy increases 50%. Who cares if we've got a bunch of extra baggage on our DNA? We're all living longer. All of us. That's a global statistic. It's not just first world countries. It's everybody. Another way that we are directly affecting our future is, when you think about it, also pretty obvious: birth control. Now, two major things about the birth control is, yes, we are not just randomly reproducing, and I'll explain the random aspect of that in a moment, but it chemically alters how we reproduce. And the way that happens is there is a paper posted entitled Unnatural Selection: Birth Control Pills May Alter Our Choice in Partners. And that comes from phys.org in October of 2009. And that article explains that obviously throughout history, the male of the species has always picked up on the chemical signals from the female of the species when they are ovulating. And birth control pills alter the chemical makeup of the female so that they don't, inadvertently, so that they don't put off this particular chemical, and if they do, it's certainly not strong enough for them to pick up on. And what that means is that we are no longer drawn to an individual based on this chemistry and reproducing instantaneously. But what we're doing is taking our time, weighing the options, and choosing our partners based on attributes that we like. So we're actually hand-picking our next generation. We are becoming a much more attractive race. The focus is on an interpersonal connection, not strictly a physical connection. The next graph I have here, very difficult to show, is a dramatic dramatic drop in the births per thousand between 1962 and 2004. That's a heavy drop, and that coincides with birth control. The age of women, if you'll notice, has also dropped over time, or increased over time. It's gone from early 20s to 30-year-olds. And this number is a good indicator that people are waiting longer, weighing their options, making more educated decisions about when to reproduce, and again, handpicking our next generation. So, although we may not be the 11 million women on birth control, may not be reproducing in the same method that natural selection and the physiology would have intended, but it hasn't stopped us from reproducing, and we're choosing exactly what we're going to be like in the future. All we have to do is make the choice. The next thing I want to talk about is a side effect of both those previous topics, the medical breakthroughs and the birth control. and essentially choosing that everyone gets a chance to live, and everyone gets a chance to live longer, and we choose when you start that life. The IQ of humans has gone up considerably. There is a lot of information to the opposite, and the problem with that is faulty testing. The IQ test that is given is altered every year, every several years. And the problem is the people who have a certain IQ score on the original test the next time, and when they test the next time, they score lower. The tests get harder. So all the statistics out there saying that our IQ has dropped over time is not reading the full picture. There is a different aspect, a different way to look at the testing, and it doesn't measure our reading, our writing, our arithmetic, none of the knowledge-based questions, but rather our intelligence, our ability to visualize shapes and different structures. Our natural born intelligence has actually increased quite a bit from 1947 to 2010, and this graph will show you the difference. You see those top two lines are different ways of testing our intelligence and how they've grown over time. And that bottom one is measuring the increase in our knowledge. And that's a good indicator that we haven't started teaching any differently. That we're teaching about the same knowledge as we have been in the past, but that our natural born intelligence has increased. That's another direction that our species is going. That's not really mentioned in the hey, we're getting weaker and more disease prone. The last topic that really kind of kick-started the entire increase in everything that we've been moving forwards with as a species is back when we started using tools. It started that far back. When we decided to split off between hunters and gatherers, we kick-started a rolling ball of growth for our species, where if I didn't have to hunt and gather, then I can be either a really good hunter or a really good gatherer. And once you hone that in, you have a really good hunter, you're a really good gatherer, you're a really good planter. And then you have really good healers and people to take care of the town's children. And eventually you get to 2016 and you have a person whose job is to move a clipboard from one peg to another. That's how specialized we are. We have people getting paid to make things out of glass. We have people getting paid to do all sorts of tiny little aspects of life, which means that every other aspect of life, every aspect of survival in general, is up to the rest of the species. Because I don't have to hunt, gather, make my shelter, defend my shelter, and any other number of things, I can get really good at what I'm working at. A man can sit at a chalkboard all day working out a math equation, knowing that when he's hungry, he can just get food. And if he has to go to sleep, he can just go to sleep. No other species has that level of specialization, and that has propelled our species forward. The flip side is that we are exceptionally dependent on each other, but we're also very dependable. That UN statistic I mentioned earlier, one of the reasons why our global life expectancy has increased so much is because we're helping each other out. Our humanitarianism. When one country is facing famine and another drought and another earthquakes, volcanoes, war, whatever the problem is, whoever has enough is giving it to who doesn't have it. And that means that we are essentially a giant team. And when we work together as a species, we can grow and increase our intelligence and our life expectancy. And everything about us changes for the better. So although knowing a few tiny aspects of our genetic future can be frightening, when you know the whole picture, it's quite inspiring.